You're flat, I'm flat, we're all flat. Let's get through it together.
And Stevens lined him up too. Let there be no mistake about that. Stevens went at him at 100 miles an hour. He get another go. And he grabs him. He's grabbed play on behind the man.
Welcome back to Further North, everybody. Now, I'm dressed like a criminal. I understand that. I'm not robbing anything, but North are robbing the joy from my life. So I thought this outfit was appropriate. Joining me, who does not look like he's about to rob a joint, is Admin 3. Hello, mate. Welcome back on Further North.
Yeah, look, thanks for having me on. I wish we were, reviewing this under better circumstances, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we say that most weeks on the podcast, to be fair. But hey, that's just where we're at, I guess.
Yeah, look, I mean, this one in particular is leaving me flat. Like, I think the other ones haven't been easy. This one probably just hurts a little bit more, given this was one we sort of expected to not just be competitive, actually just this is one we expected to win.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why the Dees went in favourites, especially with the outs that we had. The Dees have been playing good football. I think this is one thing that people maybe didn't accept going into the game, or lots of people didn't anyway, was the Dees have been playing quite well. They just haven't been getting over the line, where our last few weeks haven't been our best football. And we look to the start of the season, obviously we did an absolute number on them, but, you know, they had a very different team up and about for this one, and so did we, to be honest.
Yep.
So I guess the first question I will go to is, how were you feeling when the team selection came out and some of our guns were out? I know we knew they were going to be out, and I understand all that, but you know, there was fingers crossed Larky was going to get involved. Maybe McDonald comes back. How did you feel when the team dropped, and did that give you more hope, or did it give you a lot less hope than what you were going in with?
Less hope for sure. It made me a lot more nervous. And I think obviously Larky's absence and LDU's absence, which we knew, at least LDU we knew was certain, Larky was pretty likely. Given we do still have maybe a bit of a problem with depth, I guess, relative to some better teams, I was sort of worried as to where we were going to fill the gaps. It was a midfield that we kind of were maybe hoping for, with Will Phillips getting more time in the middle, and interesting to see how Darling would go up forward as a sole forward. And yeah, look, to be honest, I was nervous as to how we were going to fill the gaps, and we'll get into, I guess, how they were filled, but it didn't fill me with a lot of hope. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was very nervous for this one, and you know, like you touched on, and we'll dive into this a little bit more, but I think the forward line was definitely our best line of the ground. So, you know, how we function without Larky is something we'll dive into, but I was actually quite surprised with it. I do mirror your thoughts. Like, I was nervous going in, and you know, I did tip us to win, and I backed us, but deep down, I always felt maybe I'm not sure about this one. I think going into it, and yourself and Joel and me were at the game today, and so we were sharing many a thought as things were unfolding, and the things we were saying were really, I'm worried we're going in very tall. I'm worried, you know, we got sort of three keys, you know, in the back line and in the forward line, or four in the back line nearly when you count Logan there, with Comben coming in on top of Dawson and Pink, and then you've got Darling in there, you've got Finbar, you know, Xerri's always going to be there on the ruck, and, you know, that's a lot of height when you're coming into a Dees team. Has Stephen May out as well, and yes, they replaced him with Tom McDonald, and they had a little bit of height about him, but their forward line was always going to be very scary, and that definitely proved there's two factors to why we got absolutely smashed. It felt like we got smashed, but we only went down by 30-odd points in the end, 36 points, 119 to 83. Going into this game, we're sitting there, the game kicks off, and we actually started all right. The first quarter was definitely our best quarter of the game, and we looked to compete in this game, but as the game fell off, we really showed, what's the right way to say this? The difference or the things that we lack, that we really need to feel. And, you know, our back line without Archer and without McDonald really, really skimped down there for the players that took advantage. And also our midfield had no not creativity, but like explosion to it or spark to it today.
Yeah.
So, let's I guess overview the game as a whole. How did you see it sort of play out over the 4 quarters? Paint me a little word picture here of what you witnessed at the game.
Yeah, before we go into that, I do agree, actually. This is probably one of the first games where we've overcompensated on height, given we have been quite an undersized
Because it
team.
reminded me of what we did against the Swans and
Yeah.
potentially what happened against the Hawks a few weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I got to say, first 3 quarters kind of really went as I expected them to go. Maybe the last couple of minutes of the third quarter was slightly disappointing, but, going into 3-quarter time with a 16-point lead, that's nothing to really sort of, sing home about.
We were in touch still.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think we've gotten back in games and gotten ourselves, in with a chance being that far down and actually in a worse position before. Like, I mean, for context, we were down by 18 against the Eagles earlier this year at Hands Oval. So the first 3 quarters kind of went as I sort of expected, but you could sort of tell that there was, the drop-off was going to come. And I think it was more because, and I'll sort of get into the broader picture as to how the game went, but you could sort of tell because we was just seeing a lot more younger kids. We were seeing the young players do a lot more, and they're never going to peak at the end of a game. Their match fitness is just not there compared to the older players. And if you're relying too much on your young guns, your fourth quarter is always going to be pretty terrible, to be perfectly honest. So, look, I think the first 3 quarters probably it was one of those things. The second quarter was probably the most frustrating for me, in my opinion.
It became a very gross game of football.
It absolutely was. And I think, we scored 3 consecutive points from, the 19-minute mark of the second quarter. Phillips, Constantia and Cooper Harvey, who had a great game, but those were each chances, and Cooper Harvey's one actually was to draw us level. And that was quite disappointing to see. And I think it was just more frustrating than anything because there was so many things that were happening that were going right. And then again, it was just skill errors in the middle of the ground, which is quite disappointing. But also, of course, the distribution into the forward 50 wasn't great. And too many times we saw it, getting kicked to Max Gawn and up into a pack. And he's always
called that a few times in the stands. I said, let's just kick it straight back to where Max Gawn is floating into.
Yeah.
And it happened. Yeah, it did.
So that was quite frustrating to watch, to be perfectly honest, just seeing that happen over and over again. Would that have been something Larky would have been a chance in? Probably. But the problem was so much of the time I saw us doing things which would have worked had we had Wardlaw, LDU and Suv in there in the contest. But at the end of the day, they're not. They're not going to be there. You can't play to the strengths of players that are on the side. And I just felt that we were too one-dimensional in our distribution and then also our centre clearances because Xerri so many times was hitting to absolutely no one in really the few ruck hit-outs he did win. Wasn't a great game from him.
Yeah, Gawn definitely showed his experience today with Tristan. There's lots to talk about with him as well, which is, once again, we'll get into it. But I know what you're saying about the midfield especially, and it was a very one-dimensional midfield regardless. LDU and Wardlaw are our sparks in that midfield. Powell is you get what you get with him. Parker can be a bit of a hard nut, but he's not going to be the one to explode out of a contest or provide some run. And
exactly.
She's as silky as we know, but he's been down this year and he's still putting up fantastic numbers, but maybe just impact on the game and on the eye is maybe lacking with him. And this was my biggest complaint when we were, coaching from the 4th level of the MCG was the midfield just has nothing to it today. It's probably the most disappointing midfield performance I've seen for a long time with North. And that can sound harsh with personnel being out. I'm not saying they didn't battle, but we got well and truly destroyed from that midfield. And then when the ball went down into the back line, it did feel like we were a little bit too tall. And, we've seen Melksham kicking 4 and that sort of stuff. Cozzy early was very, very hot, missed a couple of absolute sitters. So he could have had, 3-4 goals, whatever he ended up with on the night. He could have had that many with a couple of points, 2-3 points he kicked. So it could have been worse. It could have been better. It's a really weird one because I'm coming away from this really feeling like we got outclassed in nearly every level. But I don't know if it feels that way. I don't know if it is that way in reality. Sorry, that's the way it just feels. Do you sort of mirror that? Because maybe the next question I'll ask you here, what do you think is the appropriate reaction to this game? Because we didn't get smashed, even though it felt like we were. I think we had our hopes up and we got let down. But with the personnel gone and, the Demons, as soon as they won it on the inside and it spilt to the outside, they were just way better at spreading. They got the spread, 1, 2, 3 handballs. We'd run out of players, and then they just enter it into, our back 50.
Yeah.
So what do you reckon is the appropriate response or feeling or takeaway from this game?
Well, this felt like the first few rounds of the season, right? Where we when we went forward and we actually moved forward, we actually looked pretty threatening most of the time. This was very much one of those things because of the size that we had. We only scored 2 goals from open play today, which was astonishing, really. That is not something we really do that much. We are pretty good and we move pretty quickly. But the problem was we were so oversized. And I said at the start of the year, the second a team realizes, hey, we can actually spread, get some overlap handballs, try to hit someone on a lead because North doesn't really move quickly in defense, then we get found out every time. And that's what it felt like, those early season games. I would probably be a little bit alarmed with just the way that the senior players sort of went today. I was a bit disappointed by Simpkin. Parker, to an extent, in patches. I think he had an okay game.
Parker's numbers were okay, but I really almost wanted a performance where he lifts us, Exactly. And especially from our captain in Simpkin.
Yeah, exactly right. And Xerri I was pretty disappointed by as well. Pretty poor discipline in the knock that he had late in the game as well. I don't know if he's going to see weeks for that, which would be quite alarming for us. But yeah, I sort of worry at the moment purely just because if the senior players aren't standing up, realistically, you're never going to win a game of footy off of that because we have really reliable junior players, but junior players, through no fault of their own across any club, can't play a full 4 quarters a lot of the time. And that's where you need those senior players to stand up. And that was pretty disappointing to watch because, I lost count of how many times we pointed out something Finn O'Sullivan did, but I can barely remember a time where I pointed out something Jai Simpkin or Luke Parker did. And that sort of really worried me because it was just like we're looking at the individual brilliance of our players under 24 years old. But then over that, besides, Cam Zerha, and Jack Darling, there wasn't really much to sing home about.
Yeah, you're totally right. Look, there's a lot of positives in the forward line, and we'll go to the different lines of the ground in one sec. But let's talk about a bit of the fallout from the game with Xerri and Will Dawson, because I think Will Dawson, long story short, I think Will Dawson will be okay. I think Xerri will get suspended.
Yeah.
Let's talk about each of them. The Dawson one was earlier in the game. He really just stepped towards the ball to try and pick it up, and Melksham sort of hit him in the hip/upper thigh area. I don't think Will Dawson's in any sort of trouble there. I would be shocked if Will Dawson was in any danger, and if it was earlier in the season, I'd be very worried. Since Paul Curtis, did the egregious act he got suspended for, that's sarcasm, we've really seen a change with how it's been umpired and the suspensions have been going. So no one has really got suspended for anything like that since Paul Curtis, and thank God North's here to be the one to change that. Well, lucky us. But the Xerri one is the interesting one. Tell me your thoughts on this, and then I've got some as well, but I want to know how you feel.
It was pretty clumsy and callous, to be perfectly honest. It's not something I think he really needed to do. It's different to say Archer or Curtis, obviously. That was just the motions of a game. I feel like there was a bit of frustration with Xerri. He obviously knows, right, that he is quite big physically, so he is obviously going to probably clean someone up if he really isn't careful. And especially when you do have that size, good players know how to get down and execute a tackle like that and execute like any sort of any contact. And yeah, Xerri is usually better than that and should be better than that. So look, I think he might see 1 or 2 weeks for that. I don't think it's going to be something. There was no concussion. So I think when you take out the fact that there was no concussion, I don't think it's going to be something that will be a 3-week suspension. I don't even think it'll be a 1 or 2 actually, and I would lean towards
that's interesting. Okay, so I wasn't sure the outcome of it exactly if the guy was concussed or not. I was pretty set on he's probably going to get 3 weeks for this.
Okay.
But now you've said that there's no concussion there. I didn't end up checking. I saw the incident, but there wasn't much discourse on that. I guess I didn't do heaps of research on it. So that's interesting. I'm always the sort of guy, and some people agree with this and some people do not. There's winnable games and there's not winnable games. Next 2 weeks, we're going to get an absolute pasting in our next 2 games. If Xerri misses those, I don't really care. We've got the Saints in 3 weeks, and that is a must-win game, an absolute must-win game for us. Scary because the Saints nearly beat the Swans today, and they can play good football as we've seen this year, and they can play really bad football. So I hope he's back for the Saints game in 3 weeks. If he gets 2 weeks, that's okay. But he'll definitely get suspended. I think he meant to do that? Absolutely not. Like, it's just the heat of the moment. The ball was sort of there. I think he's just reaching out to try and get the ball or put his body in the way. I don't think there was anything malicious about it. But I mean, the way it goes, depending on angle, I watched one angle and I was like, oh yeah, okay. He's just sort of tried to grab for the ball. But then you look at another angle and you're like, he looks like he's tried to coat hanger him. Look, he's not that guy. He's definitely not tried to hurt the player or do anything dangerous with the player. But careless, it feels like a strong word, but I guess you can put it down to a bit careless or wrong place, wrong time. He's acting in 0.3 of a second, so he's not trying to do anything of that. But I do think it'll be weeks, unfortunately. So Callum Coleman-Jones, here we come, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time for him on the sidelines. So look, I wonder whether that's gonna whether that's gonna happen. Actually, no, I think you are right. Tom Sparrow did have a concussion. Actually, sorry to correct the record. Yeah, okay. So look, he probably.
Well, that's not good. Weeks. So that's probably 3 weeks then. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, probably that will be at least 3 weeks. Really disappointing to see. I mean, yeah, he went down like basically straight away. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah. But look, yeah, I mean, I don't know how we're going to go. The Swans away, yeah, that's going to be quite worrying. That's quite a worrying match.
And I mean, spoiler alert for the preview pod in a couple of weeks, I think we're going to get absolutely towed up by the Cats. That will be an 80-point loss, unfortunately, because the Cats are good. They always smash us. And we just look tired, don't we? We look tired. We look flat. We look, not over. I don't want to be one of those people who are on the Facebook groups who are all like, they don't care. And, God, some of the reactions, I know, are just ridiculous. But I understand people want to vent. I understand being in a couple of North Facebook groups is me putting myself in the firing line of people venting and saying stupid things. But, I'm figuring out how to react to this one. I'm flat. And this is probably the worst I've felt about North since the Carlton game, to be honest. I don't really trust at the moment that we will turn up in the last few weeks. And I remain positive after the Hawks game because I think that's just, and the Cats will do to us what the Hawks did to us. But that game, I'm writing that one off. The Dogs, we got a really good performance, but it was a big loss at the end of it. We're starting to get injuries. X just does not look himself at all.
No.
He got 7 touches for the whole game. He got bullied. And honestly, the suspension's probably the rest he needs, and that's not the way we want to do it. And I could imagine him coming back from that and being a lot more refreshed. But I'd like that to be against the Saints, not whoever we play the week after. But yeah, I don't know, mate. I'm really all over the place on this one. It's not as bad as a lot of the internet crazies are saying it is. It's nowhere near as good as worth being positive about it. It's just flat, and it feels like we're tailing off at a time of the year where if we could continue these performances and get another couple of wins for the year, it would make us feel really good. But it feels flat, and it feels like we're falling away.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's sort of like, again, I truly think we are 1 or 2 wins off being a pass for the season, but it's just
I
sort
agree.
of like, yeah, 1 or 2, I think is, again, we forget that we did draw to Brisbane. And
that's a win for me, mate.
Moral,
I know it only counts as 2 points, but that's drawing with the reigning premiers. That's 4 points for North.
Yeah, if against a team that's second on the ladder, I guess a lot of people would consider that to be a moral victory for a team as poor as us, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel, and that's the thing. There are 2 games there, like Richmond and Tassie and the Saints, that are extremely winnable games. And in fact, Richmond, I'd even go I would still go as far as to say we are heavy favourites in that.
Oh, we should beat Richmond. No, not even a question. Like, Richmond played an awful game of football against an even more awful side with no players.
Yeah,
so look,
and
this is the scary thing though, is like when you look at the ladder, right? We're only 2 points clear of Richmond. Richmond play West Coast in a couple of weeks, and we're not going to get a win until at least the Saints. So, unless West Coast pulls something out of the bag, we might drop below them on the ladder. And I know realistically we've won more games and that sort of stuff, but it just feels bad, mate. It just feels bad. And that great 2 months we really put in, I need more consistency.
Yeah.
Come on. I don't like that I'm falling away here. I've been so positive and so sure that we've been doing the right things. And that doesn't mean, the game today doesn't mean none of that exists. Like, we definitely have stepped up this year. We're definitely a better side. We're on the right track, and I'm not swerving from that at all. But God, I wanted to keep the momentum, and it just feels like it's hit a brick wall.
Absolutely, yeah. It just really feels, it feels demotivating, I guess. So
it does.
Yeah, look,
it does.
I think it would be good to see, how we do go against. Like, I think it's just more try and play out of your skin against the Swans and the Cats. Really, that's my 2 things. Like, the Swans, we do terribly against them for some reason every year. And the Cats, of course, they're robotic, really, in the way they play their footy.
Yeah.
It really is mechanical the way they do it. So, I just want to see something in those games. But it doesn't fill me with much hope, does it?
No.
Yeah.
I think to every North fan listening, thank you so much. But please bunk in for the next 2 weeks of football, because, look, LDU might come back, Wardlaw might come back, Larky might come back, but we're not going to do much against the Swans. And when we go to the Cats, sweet mother of God, please look over us, because we are going to get absolutely towed up. But look, I don't want to try and be too negative. I guess maybe I'm venting. I'm being like the Facebook trolls and venting a little bit too much. But hey, let's get into some different lines of the team. I want to start with the defense, and I want to start with a particular player that I'm going to keep defending, and not call out anyone in particular, but just the people commenting about it online. Caleb Daniel.
Yeah.
In my opinion, one of our better players today.
Reliable.
You said it. Yeah. I said it. Joel said it. He was good. He was really good today. Him and Colby driving us out of that back line were 2 of the only reasons why we ever got it into our forward line and let Harvey and Curtis and Darling do what they did. I even joked to you and said, God, what are the Caleb Daniel haters going to make up online this time to say that he's bad and can't kick? After the game, there was so many. There was so many posts saying Caleb Daniel needs to go. Now, I don't know what other people are watching or if I'm just blind. He has been a good signing for us. Yes, he turns the ball over sometimes, but guess what? Every single North player does.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic against the Dees and one of our best in our top 3 players for me. What did you think of him? And then tell me what we're getting at online here, because I don't understand it.
Yeah, look, I absolutely would agree with you. I think, like we said, the running halfback is the one that always seems to cop the hate for us. And it just seems to be the cursed position for us. They're the whipping boy. But I do think, there was so many times when the defence was in panic stations. He was calm enough to, at least try and get it out. But also he made some really good high-risk kicks up the middle in those situations where it could have been an intercept mark and a shot from 40 out and goal for the Dees. Yet it would somehow always end up in the hands of a North player, or he was quite composed in those sorts of situations. So I did think he probably saved it from being a 50-point loss, in my opinion, 60 points. I think there were many times when he either got us out of trouble or started some good runs for us, which resulted in a couple of goals. So I think, he really did do a lot more than what people maybe give him credit for. And I think it's really frustrating when those Facebook groups, they say their thing, right?
But even talking to people in person, people don't like him. And I just don't understand it at all.
I don't.
Have a guess how many turnovers he had today.
Only a handful, I would say. Not many.
Three.
Yeah, exactly.
Had 3 turnovers. That's it.
Yeah.
And for a player that's job is to get the ball in the highest pressure area on the ground and drive it away from danger, to have 3 turnovers, mid to high 20 possessions on 80+% disposal efficiency. I don't understand what anybody is seeing here. I think everyone, look, please let me know why you don't like Caleb Daniel. And I don't want negativity in the comments. I don't want arguments. But seriously, pull your heads in a little bit and have a look at what this guy does and why maybe he does turn it over sometimes. Yep, I've seen him drag that thing along the ground a couple of times, and that's not good enough from a player like him. I've seen him try and switch, and he doesn't quite get the distance on it. But guess what? Every player on our team has done that. Cheese does that, you know. But the good things he does are so good, and I think he was great today. And anyone who's there's other times where I've sort of gone into this and gone, maybe I'm not seeing something with Daniel. And I watched for it today. We were watching Caleb Daniel very, very closely today, and I didn't see a single thing that anyone can complain about from him today. So, look, once again, if I'm blind, my bad. But to everyone who consistently is hating on Caleb Daniel, I question some things about your decision making. Yeah, I'm not trying to turn any fans off here or anything like that. And honestly, just chill out on Caleb Daniel, okay? Because he's doing a good job.
And he had 5 score involvements, and Jacob Constanti, who I've got really positive things to say about, he had 2. So he's obviously doing something right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I haven't gone through and looked at all the turnover numbers, but I can nearly guarantee we'd pick another player, who didn't have the ball as much as him, and they'd have at least twice the turnovers. 3 turnovers for a player that has mid-20 disposals a game is very, very low, incredibly low. I think players who get 25-plus disposals are probably averaging 6-7 turnovers a game or something like that, just from stats I've looked at before. It's insane. So anyway, we'll move on from Caleb Daniel here because we don't want to spend too long on it, I think. But that's one of the main points in the defense I wanted to talk about today, because I just don't understand it. I don't like it. And it's just hate for the sake of hate, to be honest. You've just decided in your brain you don't like him, and you've beaten a dead horse, and it's boring. So settle down on Caleb Daniel. He's doing very, very well. His partner in crime, Colby McKercher, my future MVP of this league. I love Colby
100%.
McKercher.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on him, mate, because you know what I think. I'm going to gush over him, but I want a more level head with this.
Exactly the same, like the ability for him to, again, play it out of defense and run it out of defense with the speed that he does and the consistency that he does it at. I mean, going at 76% efficiency, not his best, but also still pretty good, considering it wasn't the best game skills-wise from everyone. But he was absolutely trying to move the ball up the ground and at least showed effort across all 4 quarters, 29 disposals as well. Like that's, exactly what you want to see. And then, 11 in that second quarter was incredible. Obviously, he got shut out of the game too in that last quarter, but it really shows again. It just goes to show again, we can't, even though he is really, really good, he's still young. He's still got that match fitness to build. He's never going to be able to do it for 4 quarters at this age every single week. But I think what we saw today was really exciting. It's also one of the things that fills me with hope that we should be able to pluck a couple of lucky wins, 1 or 2 lucky wins out this year. Because with players of that caliber, there's no reason that we shouldn't be winning games of footy. And sure, this week might have been one of them, but he was always really composed with the footy and, rarely did do something poor with it. He was always just doing something really good, and I thought that was really great to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think O'Sullivan in this one was really composed with the football. Not
Oh, yeah.
once again like he does, like
Yeah.
not high possession, but always makes the right call, strong with the hips, and did drive us forward as well. And I think all of those guys did a good
Yeah.
job. Riley had a lot of was tagging Cozzy a lot, so that second half. Wilfield, which we'll touch on more, did the tagging job in sort of the first half on Cozzy, but it seemed like Hardiman was hanging around with him a lot in the second half with a slightly lesser tag, or not as quite a harder tag.
Yeah.
So those players were good. Let's talk about the key position players down back.
Yeah.
Logue has come under a lot of scrutiny. Pink also the last couple of weeks has been a bit up and down. Give me a quick run through, like a couple of sentences each on each of these players so we can keep moving this thing along. But what did you think of all of our key defensive stocks this game?
Yeah, I think Logue was been better, is what I would say for him.
He was better,
I think
yeah.
he did some pretty good things. There were some really good spoils. I mean, there was one where he absolutely steam trained into a massive pack.
Yes.
That was great to see. Toby, again, exactly the same. I think, his best, as we've seen, wins games. And that is not something we would have said 12 months ago.
Would have thought we'd say, yeah.
But he's actually, like, on his day, he's a really good defender. He's really, really good. Keeping, some of the best key forwards goalless. So, look, I don't think this is any sort of drop-worthy performance that he put in today. I would like to see what and it's more frustrating now because we know that his best is very good and keeps the best in the competition goalless. Like, he kept a Coleman medalist goalless, for goodness sake, in Turno. And then as well, Will Dawson, I think, still plenty of upside. I think he's got a lot to his game that I think is really good. I think just his ball skills need a bit of time to, they need some time to develop.
It's never a key defender's strength, though, is it?
Yeah, I think I do think as well sometimes, as we saw today, he just made a couple of little just like first year player mistakes.
But I think he was pretty solid for the game. I mean, 7 marks for the game for him. I think 3 or 4 intercepts and 3 contested marks as well. So he's proven to be a better contested player for us. And Combin's return, I don't know. I didn't see heaps from Chom. Very, very low possessions today. But what's he really meant to do with when there's not really anyone to play on down there? So, the 4 key defenders going into the next game, what have you got in the Swans? Amati, McLean can go down there a little bit as well. I guess Will Hayward is a bit of a hybrid type. You surely can't play all these guys going into the Swans. If you have to drop someone from the key defensive stocks right now, who do you drop? Because one of those, we can't go in with 3 key backs and 3 key talls. I think that's, in the modern era, is not a smart move. Someone's got to come out of there, mate, and Larky's got to come back in as well.
I would actually go as, like, this maybe, even though he was probably one of the better ones of our key position players on the day, today, I would probably go Griff to be dropped. I think the SCG is a small ground. The Swans move really quickly across that ground. It's not really conducive for a player. Look, we know that Logue's speed isn't going to be as good as some of the other players. Combin, I think he moves across the ground a little bit nicer and he moves a bit better and probably can be on a player like Joel Amati and some of those bigger Sydney forwards. I think we need to inject some pace into a ground as small as Sydney because the SCG, the ball pings around there so quickly. And I don't think Logue has the athleticism that you need to adapt to a game, to a ground like that. And the Swans know how to use that to their advantage really, really well. So I think that's going to be quite the challenge for us. I think that Logue's probably not the best fit for that. However, if Dawson does get suspended, then
I can't imagine he's getting suspended. It'd be so harsh.
It would be. I think maybe a fine. If he does, I can't see any choice but to keep him in.
Well, Melksham wasn't concussed or anything as well. He came back and continued to torch us. So if anything, it sparked him into gear. So if anything, the Swans should be, well, not the Swans, sorry, the Dees should be thanking us for kicking him into gear properly. But it's interesting. I'm going to go against you a little bit on that. I think Logue is probably our best matchup for a Will Hayward. Who I really rate. On his day, and I know that's a word or a phrase we use all the time, but like I think he's the sort of player that can really towel us up. next week, and he did in the first game as well earlier in the season. I don't like saying it at all because I think he played really well today, Toby, but I'd almost say it's Toby Pink. And it doesn't feel good at all because he's been so good, and I really want him in this team. I really like him. But I think Griff is the obvious matchup for Hayward. I would say Comben, keep dropping in as your interceptor, and you put Dawson on McLean, and then I guess when not McLean, sorry, like Amadi, you put Dawson on Amadi, Logue on Hayward, and then when McLean goes down there, get Chom on him, and when McLean goes into the ruck, Chom can be the interceptor. That's the way I would sort of want to see it, but it feels so harsh because, I mean, last time Toby Pink played in this ground, he's slotting him from the boundary line, mate. So maybe he plays forward.
Yeah, I don't know.
But then there's Finbar, and then there's Darling, and then there's Larky to come back, and it's just it's this weird situation North's in right now because we think we don't have any key position options. We actually have too many, but none that are standing out so much that they're undroppable, but none that should be dropped. It's weird, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in a bit of an awkward position in terms of who we drop. And look, I do think it's a better problem to have that, we do have some good
Too many
talent
7
there.
out of 10s, mate. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we've shown some good games. We've had some better ones, absolutely. But look, I think we do need to drop down in size a little bit. That much is obvious. So, look, I think, maybe, look, I can see the reason why we would see Pink dropped. Pink or Logue for me, I probably would understand both of them. Again, I lean
and
more
Pink's been better.
Logue.
Don't get me wrong. Pink's been better than Logue this season, but I still just think Logue will be a good player for us eventually, and he's quicker and more agile. Like Toby Pink, if you put Pink on Hayward next week, I just don't think that ends very well. I think Pink is more that bigger body to play on your Tracy's and your Lynches and all that sort of stuff. I just worry about it a little bit, to be honest, but he doesn't deserve to be dropped at all. But there's so many talls. Yeah,
exactly. And look, I never thought we'd actually go that way. But look, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. The last point I'm going to make from the defence is Riley Hardiman, right on 3/4 time, decided to be in about 25 metres of space and pretend to wander out of bounds and blah, blah, blah. That is the most boneheaded thing. Looking there, all these fans around me were like, that's not deliberate. I'm like, that is the most deliberate thing I've ever seen in my life. And Hardiman's a good player. I like him. I'm not trashing him at all, but this moment is an absolute brain fart from him. Don't be doing that. But it looked to me like he couldn't be bothered keeping it in. And I think that's what the team felt like by the end of the third.
It did.
The defense was like, I can't be bothered. Let's just get this over and done with. And, we were saying at 3/4 time as well, like these guys aren't coming back. Like as much as I think we, in a different realm, we have the ability to, it just never felt like we were going to come back for that. So, don't be doing that ever again. Not just Riley Hardiman, but anyone on the team, because it is so obviously deliberate. That's rubbish. Don't do that again. Let's go to the midfield. I've got some harsh things to say about the midfield because this is the area of the ground I'm most disappointed in. And yes, an asterisk on the personnel that were going, but how did you see the midfield today?
Look, I think the midfield was pretty disappointing today, to be honest. And again, it was not our strongest midfield. It was quite heavily compromised. With no Wardlaw and no LDU. That much, with those caveats out of the way, I did think, the three that, I had on the spotlight the most were Parker, Simpkin and Xerri. Simpkin, I thought, was largely quite absent relative to what he usually does. 21 disposals at 71% efficiency is not what...
It was a very quiet 21 disposals though, wasn't it?
Exactly, and a lot of it wasn't in the centre. He does some good things again, but it's just 0 goals 2 as well. There wasn't as much scoreboard impact. It's just we know that he does so much better, and he streaks ahead in his best compared to what he did today. I immediately think back to the West Coast game where he's come up absolute clutch. Game-winning stuff, and that just was completely absent today, which was really, really disappointing. and you don't want your captain to be doing that, which I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, which was probably the most disappointing. Now, Xerri, I think his head looked all over the place, to be honest.
He hasn't looked great the last month, to be honest with you. Like, especially the last couple of games, you know, he did get knocked around a bit. He gets beaten to a pulp every week. I genuinely think, I mean, he's going to get suspended. So, you know, I genuinely think the rest is going to do him so much good. And I want him there for the Saints. Controversial take. I think the ruckman is arguably the least most important position on the ground. I know some people are going to lose their heads at that, but I think you can get away. Like, what he does is almost like a second midfielder for us when he hits the ground. Exactly. His tackling is elite, and I love that about him. But, you know, I think maybe more what I meant by that statement is, like, I think we can cover it easier than clearly what it showed. We can't cover the midfielders who are missing or those smaller defenders who were missing. So I think if there was one position that we needed to cover, it might be the least detrimental. Do you agree, or is that stupid?
I would agree with that, actually. I think it's not the I think up midfield can go without him. The thing is, you're right. He does become a full. He becomes a second midfielder. He's able to crumb his own hit outs. He's able to rove his own ruck contests in a way that, and he moves with an agility that most other ruckmen can't do. He does it more than what, like, Goldstein was sort of, showing signs of that throughout his career. Xerri that's just what he does. Like, there are so many times where even if our midfield underperforms, he can somehow win a clearance and, basically generate a score involvement purely just from his own work. So, look, we're going to miss that, but I
absolutely
don't think
we'll miss him
happens
massively. But
yeah, I don't think it happens enough to really be like it's going to lose us a game off our own boot.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually a great point, and that's maybe what I was meaning to try and say is, like, I don't think Xerri not being there, if everyone else is fit, is going to be the reason we lose a game. We've lost a fantastic player, a fantastic ruckman, one of our best players, but I think you can cover a ruckman easier than you can cover other key players in different positions. Like, if your best ruckman is out compared to your best forward, your best mid, or your best back, I just think you can cover it a bit better. And if the midfield step up around Coleman Jones or, Tico's not going to play, my guy, but, whoever does come in and play that ruck role, I don't think it'll be the reason we lose a game if we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's going to be the reason that would lose us any games, but yeah, I do think that it is something that we are better off with, but maybe not necessarily worse off without.
Yeah, so just going to look at a few of the centre bounce attendance numbers here. I mean, Phillips, Powell, and Parker did it all day. Then it basically drops down to 13 for Sheasel, Simpkins 7, and that's about it. No one else really. There was only like a 5 midfield rotation through there, which. No, once again, no McKercher, no O'Sullivan centre bouncers, not throwing a Paul Curtis, a Zerha, something in there. I just don't think it's great coaching from Clarkson because, in my opinion, we were getting beaten out of the midfield from the first bounce of the day. Joel sort of didn't agree with me on that. And look, maybe the stats don't back that up, but when you look at the way the Demons were winning it out of that midfield, we got bullied. We really, really got bullied, and not having the ability, we had the ability, not having the nous or the tactical, influence to change that up at all, I think was very, very strange. We just kept the same thing going again and again.
Yeah. I think for me, I thought we were winning enough in the first half and maybe a bit in the third quarter to, say that we were in it and that, like, the midfield was kind of doing okay. I thought all day they weren't their best, and I could feel, you could sort of see that that it wasn't their best. But then that last quarter, I think, was just pedestrian. Like, the Dees were walking it out, really virtually uncontested for most of it. Even I think the goals that we kicked, I don't think we won the clearance every time from those, which was the most frustrating thing. So, yeah, look, I think, there wasn't really much of a change-up, whereas the Dees, you could also tell when they were winning those clearances, they were willing to use more of the centre square. They were willing to spread out a little bit wider, but they weren't going to the wing. They were still taking a corridor option, but just working wider in that corridor. So many times I saw Cozzy Pickett do that or Christian Petrarca do that, and I was just kind of like, why? Where is this for us? And I just sort of felt like Yeah, there was no presence in the actual centre bounce, but also there was no sort of willingness to spread wide, try something different, change something up.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things I'm just looking at here, so I just want to look at the clearance numbers. So apparently 17 to 11 centre clearances we won. Yet, even though we've won a centre clearance, 52 to 44 inside 50s. And if we won centre clearances that much, surely that ends up with an inside 50. And it's the way we win clearances. Like the clearance numbers are the stat in AFL that lies to you more than any other stat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like every clearance the Dees won, that was a clean clearance. Couple of handballs spilled out, the spread worked for the Dees, and they got an entry into the 50, which was much better than ours. And then when we got it out of our, midfield, we just bombed it forward and it got intercepted a lot. So I don't know, man. The midfield, nowhere near it for me today. Stoppage clearances, they killed us in stoppage clearances, killed us in hitouts. I mean, the D's dominated a lot of this game, to be honest. So disappointing. I mean, looking at the lineup here, I'm just looking at any other players in the midfield that are worth touching. We're not going to touch on everybody, but I think it was a really good opportunity for Wardlaw when he's on, and LDU are our best midfielders, and it was an opportunity for Simpkin, Powell, Sheasel, I'll put in that category, Parker, to step up. And I don't think any of them did. Parker's coming back. He battled hard, but, this guy is one of the better midfielders, been a great midfielder, one of the better midfielders in the comp for a decade. You know what I mean? That was the game when we needed him after a few weeks out and he got to rest. Powell, I mean, I'm not going to go on about Powell because I know people take my words out of context, but, 24-year-olds, people say how much talent he's got. This was an opportunity to be the number one midfielder for the day, and his stats were okay. He was clean with the ball, but there wasn't any game-breaking ability. There wasn't any taking the game by the scruff of the neck. Simpkin as our captain, out of all these players we're pointing out, he's probably the one with the most responsibility to step up. And Clarkson didn't even put him in the guts enough. What did he get, 12 CBAs? And he was relatively ineffective. Players were slipping over. I don't know, man. It's one of the most average midfield performances I've seen. Yes, asterisks on who was out, but realistically, we've got a lot of talent in there, and it was time for someone to step up. Not even Shees. Shees was clean. He got a lot of touches. I think he did really well around the ground. But at the centre bounce and at stoppage, I think I wanted a little bit more from the midfield. Is there anyone else you want to point out? I mean, that Wilfield tagged Cozzy for the first half. How did you sort of see that? And obviously it didn't work very well because we changed it, but how did you see it?
Yeah. With the midfield more broadly, was it, sorry?
Well, I mean, just Wilfield and the tag, I guess, in the first half.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did you feel more about that compared to the midfield?
Look, the tag on Cozzy Pickett was not the best choice. Let's put it that way.
Because Cozzy wasn't in the game when Phillips left him from the tag. The first half, Cozzy was so damaging, and then we were talking about it in the ground. We're like, well, he's not getting tagged now, Cozzy. We haven't seen him for the second half.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Wilfield was not really playing to his strengths, and also I thought it was a bit of a strange tag. I didn't think it was necessary to put down a tag on Cozzy Pickett. I obviously saw Wilfield move over to Petrarca later, but I think the damage was kind of already done by then. And it just, when you're going up against a small forward, it just seems a bit strange, even if he is present at centre bounces. Cozzy Pickett's a small forward at the end of the day, and having a tagger on a small forward just kind of feels a bit weird. That's something you put on an on-baller, like someone who's going to get a lot of the footy every single time. And
because when Wilfield got dragged down there, it didn't look good.
Yeah, that first goal that Cozzy kicked, it was just like you could tell that he was going to win because he read the contest like a book. He was able to get behind and be able to have control of the situation, of the footy. And Wilfield, I mean, he worked hard and he worked his ass off there, but he's never gonna get the better of Cozzy Pickett in that situation.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. So flat for the midfield, but let's go and chat about the most exciting line today. I mean, well done to the forward line for producing with the little service they got. Honestly, some of our inside 50 entries were quite nice today. And so well done to the team on that. But from the midfield not really winning the ball around the ground, I think the forwards did so well today. Cooper Harvey, I guess, is the tail
Yeah.
sign him up. I mean, I posted at quarter time, $20 says Cooper signs at half time. He was fantastic. 4 goals. He's got to get another contract. He's playing the rest of the year, surely.
Yeah. I think I think Cooper, like, I actually think the forward line as a whole, I have very few problems with. But Cooper
agreed.
Harvey, I think, was outstanding today. Again, 4 goals, just like his dad, really. And he's got the pace. He's got the ability to get himself into a position to get the footy, and he's got the kick of his dad as well. Like, what he lacks in size, he makes up for in sheer power. And I think, we obviously know he bleeds blue and white for the club. We were worried about whether his future was going to be guaranteed at Arden Street. I think he stays from here. I'm really, really excited to see what he does. And I think he sort of knew the subtext of this was going to be probably his last chance to really prove himself. So, look, I think he probably plays out most, if not the entire year, and gets another 1 or 2 years, because I think he absolutely deserves it, and I think he's shown his worth. But yeah, look, more broadly, the forward line, Zerha, I had a lot of good things to say about him. He worked hard, especially that third quarter. And you could tell, even if he gave away a couple of dodgy high free kicks, which were a bit silly from him, he still looked like he gave a shit, and he never gave up throughout the entire game. And he was still providing options. He was still trying to get himself into a position for a shot on goal. I think that was great to see. And then Darling is the third one for me. He's a different type of, he's a real body. He knows how to use his body a lot more than Sue.
Fantastic
in a marking
body
contest.
work.
His body work is really one of, on his, in his prime, he's definitely one of the best in the competition. And I still think he's up there when he does use his body work appropriately. And 3 goals, I think he should be really happy with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, I mean, Curtis early in the game looked really dangerous as well. And then, when you've got Curtis, Darling, Zerha, and Harvey all kicking, 2, 3, 4 goals, geez, it's almost like it was the midfield not winning the ball and the defense being poor, because, we kicked a lot of points. Don't get me wrong. There was one point we were just banging points. I think it was the second quarter. It got really scrappy, and there was a lot of points there to be kicked. I mean, Simpkin kicked 2, Zerha kicked 2, Harvey kicked 2 as well. Constanti kicked a point when I think he absolutely should have nailed the goal. So I don't know. I still feel like, and this is why I'm struggling to understand how I feel about this game, is it was so flat, but there was clearly opportunity there to win the game. And if the defense could have just tightened up a little bit, and our midfielders could have actually given us a little bit of opportunity to run and spread and deliver, I still think we could have won this game. And maybe that's where my angst is coming from, mate. I'm reverting back to my teen years. The emo fringe is growing out again. Maybe that's why I'm in all black. Who knows? I'm going to a funeral. But, look, well done, Cooper Harvey, on his turnaround, I guess, because we were questioning his effort. We heard he's a bit of a party animal. What's his commitment like to football? And fair play to him going back to the VFL, bagging goals every week, getting his opportunity. I mean, I'm really excited about him now. Him and Constanti might form a little partnership up there. Does that mean we don't get to see Zach Banch? I'm not sure. But hey, I really liked it, mate. I like Cooper Harvey. Zerha, great. I mean, Darling, the body work and his marking around the ground is fantastic. And if you add Larky on top of that, we've got a forward line that can kick goals. We've got a forward line that's going to be able to compete and score more than enough to win games of football.
Yeah.
And has 100%. So it's really a defense and a midfield problem. Jacob Constanti today, I mean, let me look at his disposal. I'm sure it's very, very low disposals and things like that, but I just feel like he does so much small little stuff to influence the game. He laid so many pressure acts and a bunch of, how many tackles? 3 tackles, but I feel like every one of those tackles was a moment where the Dees could have run that out of their back line, their back line, and transitioned. And I feel like he stops that. He's important, Do you agree with this? Because I know people are very separate on this. Do you think he's part of the structure?
I think so. He's it's like the vibe of it. The vibe of what he does. Yeah. It'll be more like a pressure act sort of thing. He's one of those pressure act players. He's one of those ones that when he does get the footy, he kind of knows how to use it as well. I mean, there was that moment as well where he was rushing forward, decided to hold up, and I actually was sort of against that. Ended up getting it to Paul Curtis inside the forward 50. Initially, I was a bit confused. I'm like, mate, what are you doing? But I think just having that game sense and also the composure as well to be like, okay, I've got to like turn around, let some people get inside the forward 50 when maybe a lot of other players would have kicked in hope for a dribbling shot on goal. So, look, I think he may not have the material impact in terms of just the sheer numbers of possessions or stats, but I do think that what he does more often than not leads to something positive on field, and I think that there's absolutely a place for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game against the Bulldogs, he did a great sort of tagging role almost off half back against Bailey Dale, which shout out to James Duke, a client of the barbershop and a listener of Further North who pointed that out to me. And, I wasn't watching for this today, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was doing some sort of tagging role on a Salem or even a Judd McVie. So some of these players that can run off half-back, because I don't feel like the Dees transitioned off half-back incredibly well. It was more the transition from the stoppages around the ground that really killed us. So, I think he plays a massive part. If Cooper can be a small that impacts the scoreboard and he can be the defensive guy that stops someone running off half-back and transitioning, I think he's got a massive role to play. So, nothing crazy to talk about with Constanti, but I think he's an important cog in the machine. Is there anyone else you sort of want to talk about here? I mean, let's talk about Finbar. Got subbed out. Do you think that was a fair sub?
Absolutely. I do think he's just not marking quite as well as, a player of his potential should be doing. Dropping some, absolute sitters and really not putting himself in a position where he should be having an impact. I think he's got a little bit of work to do. I don't know whether he gets back into the team for this season. Could be a bit.
So you might think he goes out for Larky?
I think he goes out for Larky. I think he's the one that really sort of stands out to me. I think he still has a lot more potential. I just think he still needs to refine his skills a little bit more.
It's impacting the game when he's not kicking goals, isn't it? I think that's it. I think against the Bulldogs, he was dropping everything that game. Good job to bring it to ground, but, you've got to start clunking some of those. I think he did okay around the ground today. I think his lead up onto the wing, he took a couple of good marks, impacts on the wings and stuff like that, but he was really failing to impact in the forward line and be a goal threat at all. And look, maybe he was leading players away and playing a bit of almost like what Larky does sometimes when he's not in the game and leads a player out and isolates Curtis and Zerha, and all the other forwards were bagging goals. So, maybe he just didn't need to do that. But yeah, if Joel's listening back to this, we were talking about this at the ground. He loves Finbar, absolutely loves Finbar, and there's lots of Finbar fans out there. I'm not quite as sold just yet. And I don't exactly know what I want from him, but I don't necessarily go into games thinking he's going to be a mega goal threat yet. And he's only young. He deserves much more time, and I think he'll play more football. And I want him to play more football. I want him to be really good. But, there's a part of me that maybe doesn't fully see the vision with Finbar where I would like a more talented first round pick or a player who's played more football that needs an opportunity to come to the club or something like that. I don't know if he's the guy that I want to really give a lot of time to in the forward line. There's still some players to shuffle around who might also get opportunities.
Yeah. I think, with Finn, it just, Look, again, I just think he's quite unrefined. I think
he's a very raw talent.
Yeah, there's the makings of a good footballer, but I just don't think that he's quite got it all there just yet.
No, I agree. Bailey Scott came on. I guess we'll talk about the guy who got subbed for. Didn't really do heaps, I guess. I think he. Let me have a look at his numbers here. I think he got like 5 possessions or something like that. He did 5 touches. I don't know, man. I don't know. When I was walking into the game with Joel, because we met you in the ground, so you didn't hear this, but we were talking about Bailey Scott being sub, and I'm like, fantastic, a sub that's going to come on and make zero impact to our game. And we definitely need a more run and brought Bailey Scott on for that. But, I don't know. I would say maybe his spot next week is in jeopardy as well, and maybe his time at the club. To be honest, without trying to be too harsh, I can't believe the drop off in Bailey Scott this year. It has to be studied, whatever happened to him. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't have much faith going into it after the year he's had that he was going to affect the game at all when he came on, and 5 touches in. What did he get subbed on early in the third? I think so. Nearly two quarters of football for 5 touches.
Yeah,
I don't know, mate. Not great.
Yeah, no, it's he just didn't do much. Like, again, I have trauma from Richmond, but he just didn't really add much value at all. And again, he was one of those ones where he was primed to have, a bit more of a good year, and unfortunately, it just never turned out to be the case. It's really, really disappointing. He's just not really impacting the game, and I don't think he's a sub kind of player as well. He's not one to be a substitute. So that's all well and good, but at the end of the day, if you are the sub, that's kind of, you got to work with that.
Yeah, there's still a role to be played, and he didn't get subbed on in the 4th or anything. He got subbed on early in the 3rd. So there's plenty of time to impact the game with his run and carry and link up, and it just wasn't there. And the sub rule across the AFL is used. It's such a rubbish thing. I hate the sub. The sub
just have 5
sucks.
interchange.
5 on the interchange, or go back to 4 on the interchange. I don't care. The sub is ridiculous. Like, if you've got emergencies that go to the game and someone's ruled out with an injury, then swap them over. But maybe it's got to be like a like-for-like player or something like that. Or you could pick one of the emergencies or something like that. Imagine if there was 3 sub options for you to pick from, and depending on how the game's going, you can tactically swing it.
Yeah.
The sub rule just hasn't been figured out yet in the AFL. I can't think of a single performance where a sub's come on in an AFL game and been like, wow, that changed the game. And it could be used more tactically, and it's not. It's just used to change something. But you dedicate your sub before you know how the game plays out. And I just think that's silly. So 4 on the bench, your emergencies are there. Wheel one of them out from the change room or something like that, depending how the games go. If you need a tall, bring a tall on. If you need a small, bring a small on or something like that. I don't know. I'm not, what's his name? Andrew Dillon. I'm clearly not versed in my lawyer ethics like he is.
Yeah.
So anyway, look, let's start tying the bow on this podcast here. Sean Atley, club champ. I've got an ideology of this. I want to go McKercher 3. I want to go Harvey 2, and I want to go Caleb Daniel 1. I think he was good today, and I sort of want to stick it to the Caleb Daniel haters a little bit, to be honest. But it feels rough on Zerha, but I think Bailey Scott was fair. Bailey Scott. I think Caleb Daniel. Sorry, mate.
Hold up.
Sorry, the Bailey Scott's buzz cut looks like a helmet to me. I'm going to go. I'm going to go McKercher 3, Harvey 2, Bailey. I'm going to say it again. You know the guy. I mean, the small bloke with the helmet. What am I doing? It's late. I'm tired.
Tristan Xerri.
Tristan Xerri. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
you put him in the dryer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to make a case for, like, a Zerha's probably really harsh to miss out? Other than that, there's probably not many more to pick from, to be honest.
Yeah. Look, I would say Cooper Harvey definitely 3.
You want to go 3 for Cooper? Okay.
I think so. I actually think he was, again, the scoreboard impact he had was 4 goals too. I think he was very, very good there. McKercher, I think definitely deserves 2. And you gave Caleb Daniel 1. I would agree with that. I would say definitely the same 3, just swap the top 2. And I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
Can I make a case for McKercher here and say Harvey's goals were great, but McKercher was the only player alongside Daniel who wasn't a forward that was doing something. Yeah. And I think he was the only thing that got that ball. Him and Daniel were the only things that got that ball from our back line, even towards Cooper Harvey. Cooper's goals were great, but he didn't do much outside the goals. And that's maybe the path I would go down with that. But hey, I'm happy. I'm open to a discussion here.
I actually would agree with that. I think, I also think in a midfield and back line, in a midfield that was, probably as
inept.
Yeah, impotent and disappointing as that, to be able to still get footy when your teammates are letting you down and to still generate as many chances as he did when there was no one else kind of really helping him out. I think you've made a good point there to put that in 3. I can see why you're doing that. So
Okay.
I think I'd be happy with that.
All right. Colby 3, Cooper 2, and the mini helmet 1.
Yep.
All right. Let us know in the comments down below if you agree with that. I'm sure there's going to be some Caleb Daniel fans out there who are roasting me. But hey, if you are commenting down below, please make sure you're subscribed because it does help me a lot on YouTube, and give that video a like. It genuinely is the way to support the podcast. All right. The last thing we'll do here, golden helmet moment of the game. Is there anything? Anything?
On paper, losing by 30 points and scoring, close to 90 points, on paper there should be a lot. There wasn't really too much.
I'm trying to think of a moment that I look back to and go, wow, that was great. I don't know. You know what? Maybe we leave this to the listeners. Because I really can't even think of one. We were there, we watched it, and I walked away and I'm like, yeah. I mean, look, Cooper Harvey's performance, I guess I can put in as that, but I want one specific moment. So everyone listening, put your golden helmet moment of the game down below, because if I've forgotten something, I'm sure there's going to be something that someone will put down there and I'll go, I'm an idiot. How did I miss that?
Yeah. No, I can't think of it, so I'll be curious to see what everyone else says.
All right. Well, look, let's finish it up, mate. Thank you for a very somber, flat podcast today. We've tried to bring a bit of energy, but it's currently 9:30 at night on Sunday after the game. I'm tired. My voice is starting to go a little bit. I'm kind of over north for a bit. I'm going to pack up my football brain for a bit, and we'll come back later, very late in the week, to preview the next game. But thank you for joining me again, mate, and hopefully we can get you on after a win.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, look, I'm going to be up in Sydney actually with Admin 2. We're going to be, like I told you at the game today, to be my first one watching North Interstate for an away game. Obviously gather around in Tassie, but home games are neutral venues.
A proper away game.
Yeah, so proper away day, which would be good. So if anyone finds themselves at the SCG, we'll be probably sitting, close to where the North cheer squad is, some of the few North fans on the day. So please feel free to say g'day to us, and hopefully some fortunes are turned around at least for 1 or 2 more weeks.
We'll see how we go. Well, have fun up there, mate. Last time I was up there watching a game, I watched North Sydney when Barry Hall was playing for them at, is it ANZ Stadium? I think it is. So,
at Homebush,
Yeah, Homebush. They probably have a different, it's probably Crypto Arena or something now, who knows. Look, hopefully it's a better result. But look, stay strong, North fans. It's okay to feel flat. Let's see how we go. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for joining me, Admin 3. Have fun, guys.
Easy. See you later.